Hi, my name is Noah Olati and welcome to 5 Minutes of Design and Code. In my last episode, I talked about 5 design tips, and I believe that if you watch that video, you'll be thinking differently, most especially around designing. In today's episode, we'll be looking at another 5 design tips that can get you going regardless of any application that you use. The first on my list is understanding who you're designing for. Well, in some cases, you might be designing for practical or for practice purposes, but in most cases, you're designing for an audience. It might be that you're designing for corporate organizations, or you're designing for children, or you might even be designing for a church or a mosque, regardless of where they come from, who they are, and the expectations. Because that's the only way you can create that connection which you envisage. Now, creating connection is very, very important. And the only way to do that is when you understand who you're designing for. Another example would be that if you want to design for a bank, you can't make it look as if you're designing for a market, or you can't make it look as if you're designing for children. When you're designing for, let's say, children, you don't want to make it look so serious and, design for adults. So those kind of things. Same thing applicable to whatever document you're trying to prepare. If you're designing for, let's say, you might be designing for a party. When you're designing for party, you don't want it to look as if you're designing for people going on a trip. Yeah, sometimes you might even want to design for people going on a trip, but at the same time, you get the gist. The major thing I'm trying to say, you put the audience into consideration. It will really help. It will help you get the elements which should be used and how to apply some of those things. Another thing you want to consider is the use of icon. Now, icon is very, very essential while designing, because you can take icon like when you're cooking and you needed to add some flavor, some spicy, you need to add like a red pepper or black pepper or whatever color of pepper. The main idea really is to kind of like give a perception or to make people feel a certain emotion while trying to view that content. One way to look at it again is application of icon, sort of like give people a pictorial understanding. Now, instead of me writing telephone, for instance, if I put an icon of a phone, it makes the user kind of like resonate with what I'm trying to say immediately. If I'm trying to talk about maybe inflation rates or economic terms, if I use something like icon that has charts, kind of like help. Those are the kind of things you can add while making your design. Another thing you want to pay attention to is you need to create lines while making your design. A line helps you to kind of like group your elements. It helps you create some sort of eye movement. You create demarcations, but you need to apply it in a very subtle way so that it's not taking all the glory from the design. One interesting point you need to still take note of is contrast. Contrast is sort of like different shade of colors. Take contrast as represents a certain element in a different way. You can make it dark shade, light shade. Just think about it on how you can kind of like show people different aspects of your design. You mustn't overkill it, but at the same time, try to see how you can give people different shades. Sometimes you can even go ahead to add overlay to your design. Maybe you have an image, you use a color to cover it, reduce the opacity, and make it look like darker shade, lighter shade. That kind of like creates some sort of subtle effects on your design. And through that way, people don't really have to get bored while trying to view your content. The last of my list is try as much as you can to make it simple. You need to keep your design simple. Regardless of what you're doing, you actually have to keep it very simple. Or when you apply them too much of it, or you overdo some of these effects, there are possibilities that the viewers will be lost. The real gist or the real idea is you don't want to create a design that is misleading. You don't want to create a design that doesn't work well based on the kind of information you want to create. Those are the 5 tips I want you to take note of. If you have questions, just make sure you drop it in the comment box. I'll be much available to take on those comments. Thank you. If you like this video, subscribe to our channels. In my next episode, I'll be coming up with other cool stuff on how you can design like a top-notch and everybody will resonate with your brand.